Well, welcome along to A World in London at Resonance FM, your weekly and definitive global music show broadcasting from the UK's capital city. I'm DJ Ritu, and today we'll be spending time with West London guitarist and music man Adam Blake. So Adam's going to take us through his Portobello blues and intriguing career history with some awesome sound bites. And as for right this very minute, well, I'd like to introduce you to my guest for today. It's Adam Blake. And Adam, take it away. Let's hear your first live track. Fantastic, Adam Blake. It's so good to have you on A World in London. We've been meaning to do this for a while, and it's been well worth the wait, for sure. What was the opening piece of music you played?
I suppose you could call it a version of Louisiana blues, but I just call it chop suey, really, because it's just noodles. When I go busking, what I generally do is I start out by just playing a tune in an open D tuning and see what comes out, and try and feel the atmosphere of the street on that particular day and try and move it in that direction.
I'm trying to imagine what kind of street we could be talking about, because that to me was Delta Blues, Mississippi, somewhere, round there.
What it is that when I was a kid, I guess, which features a soundtrack with Ry Cooder playing a lot of blues slide guitar. Film was to a large extent set in Notting Hill, but Notting Hill in 1968, and I live around there, and so I busk on the corner of Elgin Crescent and Portobello Road, and I try to provide some kind of continuity with that aspiration that I had with what's going on now around Portobello, and I feel like it's important for someone to play the blues in Portobello Road, and that seems... Actually, I'm not the only one, but I'm the only one who's playing this style. So that's where that one...
When you say this style, are you the only one playing using a bottleneck.
Kind of. I mean, you know, as I grew older, I realised that, I mean, what Ry Cooder does on that is wonderful, but he was borrowing from Fred McDowell and Blind Willie Johnson, and of course, you know, that's a very different proposition. And it's taken me sort of 35 years of work, but I'm getting there. I'm kind of moving towards that. You know?
I think you're pretty there, actually, already. I wouldn't sell yourself down the river too much.
It's to do with you know, there's a lot of microtonal things going on, which is actually quite similar to, you know, because I played sitar for Corner Shop, and it's quite similar in some ways to the sitar in that you have
the bending off the notes,
these very sort of small movements. You know, between, I don't want to get too technical, but the third and
be
the
my
seventh.
guest.
At the third and the seventh of the scale, you've got the minor third and the major third and the minor seventh and the major seventh, and the distance between them is very small but very, very critical. And then, of course, you have all the rhythms. You have to bounce all the rhythms and make sure that they fit, and all of those polyrhythms. And so it's complicated music, but it has to come from the heart. Otherwise, it's just a technical exercise.
Do you think that what you'd learnt to do with regard to the guitar and following that whole kind of blues tradition is really what gave you a sure footing before working with the band Corner Shop and picking up the sitar? Was that the first time you picked up the sitar?
No, I played the sitar off and on since I was 21, which is, you know, going back a long way. The story of how I played for Corner Shop is quite funny, really. I used to play bass for Natasha Atlas, and for a couple of years I was in her touring band, and I got to know, through Hammy, the drummer, I got to know Shima Mukherjee, who played for Transglobal Underground, and she was a classical Indian sitarist, and she called me up and she said, "Look, I've double booked myself. I hear you play the sitar. Could you dep for me?"
Oh my God!
For Corner Shop. And I said, "Yeah, okay, sure. How long have I got to practice?" And she said, "About 6 weeks." And I said, "What's the money?" And she said, And I went, "Okay." And the next thing I knew, I was playing rock and roll sitar. I mean, I was probably the only rock and roll sitarist in London, because it was very much like that.
My goodness, that was quite an order to have to pick up really, really quickly.
I was very nervous.
I'll bet you were.
Because the funny thing was that I loved Corner Shop completely. I mean, when Brimful of Asher came out, I used to buy copies of it to give to people, to say, "Hey, you know, isn't this great?" And so, you know, a few years later, I was actually... The first gig that I did with Corner Shop, we were opening for Oasis at Finsbury Park. And there were, I don't know how many thousands of drunken Oasis fans chucking bottles at us.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking, if any of those bottles comes anywhere near my sitar, I'm out of here. But fortunately, it was too far away.
I'll bet there you were, cradling the sitars, trying to protect it.
I was.
I mean, out of Corner Shop, let's just remind ourselves who Corner Shop were or are, because they are still active today. It's Tajinder Singh and
Ben Ayers.
Yes. Is that
and
the
whoever
lineup?
they choose to work with. Alan Gregson is also very much a part of it on a permanent basis. And, you know, if I sometimes still go and do recording sessions for them from time to time.
Yeah. And of course their biggest track probably was Brimful of Asher.
Oh, yeah.
Partly the lyrics, the catchy lines that are in there, the references to Usher Bosley, the amazing Indian singer, and everybody needs a bosom for a pillow, which was another a bit of a hook, to say the least. But I suppose it was the Norman Cook remix that really propelled that track a lot further into the dance music scene as well. I mean, I played Brimful of Asher and Norman Cook's remix only like last weekend.
It always works.
Yeah, it does. It works with such a
works.
variety of audiences. Yeah. But tell me about some of the tracks that you did with them that featured a sitar.
Well, if you like, you can play one. I mean, it's going slightly against what we said we were going to do, but the third track on the CD that I brought in is a Corner Shop track with me playing the sitar. If you'd like to run that, it's called Free Love, and it was from the last Corner Shop studio album that wasn't a collaboration. They've put out a couple since that were collaborations, one with Bubbly Core and one with Urban Turban, but this one was just Corner Shop, and it was called Judy Sucks a Lemon for Breakfast, and the track is called Free Love. If you could line it up, that would be great.
It's lined up. Let's do it. Free Love by Corner Shop, and featuring our guest for today on A World in London, Adam Blake, playing the sitar there. I remember seeing one of their first ever gigs at, it was at the Brixton Academy. And I mean, it was early days, but they still had
Was that in the 90s?
Yeah. You can see, you can tell I'm not 21 as well anymore. So
well, they've been around a long time.
They have been around a long time, yeah. And he manages to look eternally younger. Tajinder's. I mean, I don't know so much about Ben, but definitely.
Little portrait in the attic for Tajinder, definitely.
Yeah. So Adam, with you, what we're hearing really is that you've always been a Londoner, pretty much.
I've lived my whole life in London, yeah.
Has that always been in West London?
Since about 1981, yes.
And that's where it feels like home, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Especially on the corner of Elgin Road and Portobello Road.
I set up camp on the corner of Elgin and Portobello. I mean, I don't know how much longer we'll be able to continue busking without a licence. I mean, so far it's still unlicensed, mainly I think because the council don't know how to proceed. But, you know, it's everything is up for grabs at the moment, and it's all in the air because of Grenfell and because of the mess that's going on. It's very confused time.
I'll bet. I mean, is busking something that you feel inspired to do in the London Underground, or is your pitch over at Portobello Road the place?
That's where I do it nowadays. I have done it in the Underground in the past. I used to go out with Errol Linton. I was going to bring, because I've been playing with Errol Linton in his various bands for the last 24 years, which is astonishing to me. But he is a professional busker, and I used to sometimes go out with him until he very gently sacked me because we weren't making enough money.
He wanted to keep the pennies for himself.
Well, fair enough. That's how he was earning a living. I was just a dilettante.
I want to ask you two questions just very quickly. Firstly, can you let the listeners know who Errol Linton is?
Errol Linton is a bit of a national treasure, really. He's a blues harmonica player, a Caribbean Londoner, and he plays the harmonica, sings. He actually won the Best Blues Singer of the Year award last year from Boysdale, for whatever that's worth. And I think he was amazed because he considers himself a harmonica player rather than a singer, but he is a wonderful singer. And he also writes songs. We've made 4 albums together, and we've got another one coming out at the end of this year called Packing My Bags. And I'll play a track from one of those albums after I've done a live track, if that's okay.
Fabulous.
What else can I tell you about Errol? He's wonderful. He's a fantastic musician and a sweetheart. And shout out to Errol.
And he's always gigging around town, isn't he?
And still busking. Actually.
And still busking. Now, that was the second question that I wanted to ask of you. Busking. Look, there's a lot of us that we all know what buskers are. We walk past buskers in the street or certainly in the London Underground. And was it just me? Is it just me who kind of wonders what it's like to be a busker?
Busking is endlessly fascinating. It's the most amazing study of human nature. And if you like people watching, which I do, it's just wonderful. And you can never tell. You can never tell who is going to give you something. Just as soon as the 2 golden rules for me for busking are play beautifully and judge no one. And I'm giving away the busking secrets there because, but if you keep that in, and it's quite hard to do, because if you get yourself into a bad mood, you won't make any money because people sense it. They will avoid you. You won't get anything. So
therein lies another question. Is it about trying to earn a living, or is it people that are so filled with music that they have to just get out there and just play it anywhere and everywhere and throw it at the public, the general public?
It's a bit of both, I think. I mean, for me, I tend to go out on a Friday and practice, and at the Saturday, if I'm not gigging or doing something else, teaching, say, if the weather's okay, I'll go out on a Friday and practice and make a little bit of money. And then on the Saturday, I'll go out, and it's like doing a gig. That's quite full on. That's like you're performing, and you don't really stop for as long as maybe 2 hours solid. And then Sunday again, I'll go out and practice. What I like to do on Sunday, which is, I just think somebody needs to do it, and I play Sanctified Blues. I play, Fred McDowell's You Got to Move, and I play Lightning Hopkins' Jesus, Won't You Come By Here, and things like that, because I think somebody ought to play them. Even I'm not a Christian, but I think it's important that music survives.
Well, I was going to ask you what Sanctified Blues is.
Sanctified Blues,
but I think you just sort of slightly explained it.
It's not gospel. It's a small genre. There's not very much of it, but it's very beautiful. I think it touches me very deeply. Blind Willie Johnson was probably the greatest exponent of Sanctified Blues, but also Fred McDowell. It's blues which is religious in tone, and keep your lamp trimmed and burning. Get right, church, and then go home. You Got to Move is possibly, the most classic, probably the most well-known Sanctified Blues, because the Rolling Stones did a cover of it, which is where I learned it, of course.
Well, we're going to have to ask you about all the other different kinds of blues.
There are so many.
But I want to know. But before we do that, let's take in your next live track.
Well,
is it going to be an example of Sanctified
I'm going to
Blues
do
or
a song, a traditional American folk song, which I'd like to dedicate to Norman and Deb, which is Khurana, Khurana. Khurana, girl, you've been so long. Khurana, Khurana, girl, you've been so long. I've been worrying about you, baby. Baby, please come home. I got a bird that whistles, I got a bird that sings. I got a bird that whistles, I got a bird that sings. But I ain't got Khurana, life don't mean a thing. Tell me, Khurana, how do you wear your hair? Tell me, Khurana, how do you wear your hair? Does it flow over your shoulder even when I am not there? Girl, you've been on my mind. Khurana, Khurana, girl, you've been on my mind. Man, I'm sitting down thinking of you, I just can't keep from crying.
Well, that was just simply beautiful. Adam Blake live on A World in London with DJ Ritu.
Thank you.
Actually, it's not just me here. Adam dedicated that song, Khurana, Khurana, to Norman and Debs, meaning Norman Drucker, who's also in the studio with us, one of our production assistants. Sophie Darling, you're here as well, and Alban Lowe, artist, he's in the studio. I've just got to take a little group opinion here, if you don't mind. Sophie, you're a singer as well. What are your thoughts about Adam Blake?
Adam Blake. I thought that was beautiful and
Thank you.
quite soul-searching almost. Makes you sort of transcendent, I think.
Is busking something you feel you'd be able to do, Sophie? Especially after listening to Adam here in the studio.
It's something that I have done in the past, but I never took it too seriously because at the time I wasn't playing enough sort of my songs are very not busking material, like walking past and you hear nothing for a couple of minutes or something. But now I'm playing some more upbeat songs that might actually be the best way to make money in London.
Uh-huh. I mean, it's just while I'm sitting here listening to you, Adam, and also watching you, there's some kind of openness that seems to go with what you do.
It has to come from the heart. Otherwise, you won't make any money.
But it's like it almost spills out of you, you know.
No, I'm being cynical.
The music, I mean,
there's more to it. It has to come from the heart. Otherwise, I don't think there's much point to it. But from the point of view of busking, put it this way: there's a guy I know. He's a professional busker. He turns up with a saxophone and very elaborate backing tracks, which he plays very loud, and he plays saxophone over the backing tracks. And to me, I mean, I don't want to be judgmental, but it sounds like elevator music to me. But he makes a fortune. He makes double what I do, at least, because the public like it. It's something that they know and that they can, you know, it makes them feel comfortable, you know. And if you take them, I mean, I think there is a, you know, it may sound terribly pretentious, but there's a political angle to what I do. I think it's important to play the blues in London. I really do. And I know that I'm just a middle-class white guy, but I think it's important to play the blues. And somebody might as well do it, and it might as well be me. And
but what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to work out why I'm seeing so much fluidity with how you do what you do. And okay, I said the busking, but maybe it's the blues, or maybe it's a combination. Norman, Alban, do you have any thoughts about this? Because I know you're both blues fans. Yeah, Norman, if you can sort of try and get yourself in on that microphone. And I know, Alban, I know you're sitting there thinking things, so we'll put you on the mic in a second.
Well, yeah, Adam doesn't just have a feeling for the blues. I think he's been playing, I should say you rather than he. He's like the cat in the corner.
Adam,
you're over there, mate.
We'll just talk about you.
That's all right.
You talk amongst yourself.
I think you've been playing long enough to actually be the blues.
Thank you.
and not to mention to have the blues as well, because you have to live it.
You have to have the blues.
The fact that you played with Errol for so long is a sign of some recognition in my book.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that long, 24 years.
24 years.
But the fact that Errol knows you as a good musician. And I've seen you many, many times with the quintet, the 5-piece band, and you play electric guitar.
Is that Errol Linton's quintet?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They have a weekly residence at the Effa Tavern in Brixton. Are you going there tonight?
No,
I didn't
I'm doing
think you
this
were.
instead.
No, this is his gig for tonight.
Okay.
They've
Come in two
they've
places
got
at
Richard
once.
They have
Roden
a
playing for me.
weekly residence, and it's wonderful. It's the best band I think I have seen. Certainly blues band. And I always have this feeling that, you know, I've been around a bit, you know, since quite a long time.
Even longer than me and Adam.
Yeah,
I think.
it's certainly longer than you two, maybe even combined. But had you been around as a band in the 1960s, you would have been really, really big. And had you been an American band, you'd have been, global. And the way the music has changed, by so many, basically dumb bands getting big breaks without necessarily deserving it. And it's just, I've had the pleasure of seeing over several weeks. We used to go when we could, week after week after week, and it was a treat. To see each of the musicians in turn, because I thought, I used to think this week I'll concentrate on the double bass player and how he works. And the drummers you have are great, and particularly when you have Kenrick Rowe.
Kenrick Rowe, yeah.
And I had a fit one night when I was watching...
Kenrick Rowe?
Kenrick Rowe's a bit of a legend.
I had a fit when I was watching Glastonbury, I think this year or last year, and PJ Harvey came on. I thought, I recognise that drummer.
Yes.
And it was him.
PJ
and then
Harvey.
I realised why he wasn't playing with Errol Linton.
Kenrick Rowe.
Yeah,
right.
Because he had a really good paying gig with...
She offered him more PDs.
Yeah, anyway, I think as a musician, Errol is great, and Adam is... great as well.
Okay. Alban, any thoughts? Because you are a blues fan, aren't you?
Well, I'm a music fan completely. I think I'm really interested in what Adam does. He sometimes I think of the blues that are kind of digging in, are kind of getting dirty and getting ingrained in the kind of I suppose, the fabric of London, but it could be anywhere. But listening to Adam's music, I get the feeling of moving above something and looking down, really. And I was listening to that last track. It elevated me.
Yes.
So rather than kind of bring me down, it sent me higher.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Thank you.
See, there was something really special in the room when you did Khurana.
Thank you.
Maybe, in fact, we should just get you to do it again and again and again.
Oh no!
For the rest of the program.
Really do that. But,
I know you can't do that. There's many other tracks you do want to do.
But actually, I should say I learned that off Bob Dylan. I learned that off a Bob Dylan record. It's from the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, and it's a beautiful version. But I think the song itself goes back to the 1920s, if not even earlier. Isn't that true, Norm?
I think so. Yeah, it's probably an old pop song, the early 20th century.
Yeah.
It's become transmuted. It was a version by Dean Martin.
Do you know where Bob Dylan learned it?
I don't know where we learned that version from.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because
I want to delve into some of the other people that have influenced you. Before we do that,
can we play that Errol track?
Well, I want you to do another live one.
You want me to do another live one? All right.
Would you mind?
No, of course not.
I mean, well, actually, wait.
I'll
You do what I tell you to do on this program,
That's
Adam Blake.
absolutely
I want a
fine.
live track now.
Let's see. I was going to do this song, which I wrote as a kind of in the style of Lightning Hopkins, maybe, but
Who was Lightning Hopkins?
Lightning Hopkins is a great Texas blues man, probably the archetypal. Well, maybe there was Texas Alexander before him, but Lightning Hopkins was a kind of giant of Texas blues. I mean, anybody who really, he's the daddy, he's the don of Texas blues, really. And he has a particular style of playing the guitar, which is so loose-limbed, and he makes it sound so effortless, and then you try and play it, and it's not at all. Anyway, I'll give it a go. It's called Ain't Gonna Wag My Tail No More.
I like the sound of that one. My two dogs like the sound of that one as well. Ain't Gonna Wag My Tail No More. Adam Blake live on A World in London.
I've been your dog for too long, woman. Ain't gonna wag my tail no more. I've been your dog for too long, woman. Ain't gonna wag my tail no more. I've been up on my hind legs begging, but now I'm back down on all fours. Yes, you've been running down the game on me, like to see me play the fool. Hey, you've been running down the game on me, like to see me play the fool. Yeah, but I've been checking up on your territory. Lord, I've been wising up on you. Tell me, baby, what you want from me? I told you that I loved you. Throw it right back at me, give me some loving, 'cause I'm about to lose my worried mind. Yeah, you're a hard-hearted woman. Keep me begging here all the time. Yes, you've been driving me to drinking, yeah, like I ain't never done before. to drive a bit of drinking like I ain't never done before. Yeah, you sure been getting to me, babe. They ain't gonna wag my tail no more. Sorry about the ending. Never mind. Hey.
I like the ending. I also like the impromptu laughter. Is that not meant to be there?
Well, you know, sometimes I make myself laugh, try to do a Texas accent.
You know, I was going to pick up on the accents because it seems to me that you're also the most amazing, a very good mimic.
Well, I don't know. So sort of listening to the guy for 35 years, I guess, you know. I mean, Lightning Hopkins is if you like Lightning Hopkins, you like him a lot. Let's put it that way. It's not somebody that you'll have a casual relationship with.
Let's not go there, Adam.
Let's not go there. No. He made millions of records. He's actually a very interesting character because you could never make a best-of compilation. All you could really do is put your favourites together because all his records are the same and they're all different. You know, it's not, you can't say, oh, that one's much better than that one. They're all, you know, they're just him. He just plays and sings as he feels on the day. Anyway.
As for you on the day or each and every day, what percentage of your time is spent playing and singing?
On a day-to-day basis? Well, I teach, you see. So, I mean, like, for example, if I'm teaching, I might be playing for hours, but I won't be playing what I want to be playing. I'll be playing what I'm teaching the student. And I teach a lot of beginners, so it can be a bit dull from my point of view. But, I mean, you know, the way I figure it is they've got to start somewhere, and they might as well start with me. I've been teaching for a long time, and I know how to teach beginners. I'd love to get a few students who could play a bit.
That would be helpful. Well, but
occasionally you do.
Your education work aside,
yes.
Supposing you have 3 days off,
yeah.
Are you the kind of person that will go off and read a book, or are you the sort of person who will be playing your guitar and singing for a part of the day?
I don't sing except when I'm performing. I just don't see myself as a singer at all. Guitaring, I just pick the guitar up and will fiddle with the guitar while I'm farting about on Facebook or watching TV or
so that guitar is kind of your best friend. It's
like
tucked
I am
under
now.
It's tucked under your arm most of the day.
I'll be like this, you know. This is, the guitar is just there.
Okay,
it's just there.
Then so let's just take you back. Now, when did you first pick up a guitar?
When I was 9.
And was it forced? Was it tune a day at school?
What it was, I'll tell you what happened, was when I was, my aunt is an actress and she had a part that required her to play the guitar. And she didn't actually play the guitar, it was just a prop. But I remember she gave it to me because she thought I was interested in it. Whenever I went round to visit my aunts, I would be playing with it, I'd be fiddling with it. So after the show was over, she gave it to me and I fiddled about with it, but I couldn't really get anywhere. And then a couple of years later, when I was 11, at school, there was an announcement in assembly saying anybody who's interested in having guitar lessons, go to such and such a room this evening after school. So, right, okay, that's me. So that was in December 1971. And I remember I went for the lesson, and I'm left-handed, and I wanted to learn left-handed, and he said, I can't teach you left-handed. So I went, oh, okay. So I learned right-handed. There are lots of left-handed guitar players who play right-handed. It's quite common.
Yeah.
And it's much easier. It means you can borrow other people's guitars, and you don't have to read charts upside down and all of that stuff. Anyway, I had this awful sort of not much above a toy guitar, and he said, no, you're going to have to get a proper instrument. So I cajoled my parents. They were actually very supportive. They said, sure, you know. And they bought me a cheap classical Spanish guitar.
That's the one we all started with, isn't
yes.
it? Yep.
And I learned classical for 4 years. I learned classical, and every week I would be the one who'd say, but sir, I want to play like Jimi Hendrix, you know. And he'd say, he was actually a very good teacher, and he said, if you want to play like that, you have to teach yourself. I went, oh, okay. So then what I did is I glommed onto a couple of guys at my school who were a couple of years older than me, who played electric guitar. And I used to sort of make a nuisance of myself and follow them around and learn whatever I could from them. And that was how I started. And then I got an electric guitar when I was 13, I think.
13's quite young.
Well, I always
think,
knew
for an electric-
what I wanted to do. From the age of 12, I knew I was going to be a musician.
It was that clear.
Oh, absolutely.
And guitar was definitely
Yes.
the way you were going to do it.
Traffic and John Martin at the Rainbow, Stevie Winwood's Traffic, and John Martin at the Rainbow Theatre. I went with my dad. April 1973, we were the oldest and youngest people in the place, and I remember looking at Stevie Winwood on the stage and thinking, oh, I want to do that. That's what I want to do.
Why?
Because it was great. And years later,
I have to
Sorry,
know.
yeah.
I have to know what was great about it. Was it? Did you want to be like a rock star?
Not
Did you want
really.
the attention, or was it
No.
what he was
Funnily
playing? What
enough,
was it?
A lot of people want to be rock stars. I actually wasn't in. I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to play this music because they were really good at that time. I mean, they were right at the top of their game. And so was John Martin. I mean, he was playing his solid air material. Traffic it was the big band with Rebop Kwakubar on congas, and they don't get enough credit for introducing African rhythms into Western music. And it was amazing. And years later, I heard a pirate recording of the show that I saw, and it was really good.
Yeah.
And I'd never been so impressed by anything.
So they were great role models for you.
No, I don't know about that. Musically speaking.
Musically speaking. But then the blues, where did that... because you've already mentioned now African rhythms. You
What
mentioned...
happened was the blues, I was the guy who would look at the record label when, Eric Clapton, The Cream and stuff like that, which is all kind of a piece with Stevie Winwood and the kind of British blues boom stuff of the late 60s and early 70s. Of course, if I like music, I have to hear all of it. I will follow an artist's career from the beginning and listen to everything.
Right, so you're a real boy in that respect.
Absolutely,
it's that anorak.
obsessive.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Okay.
obsessive. And when I was a teenager, much more so. I've actually mellowed out considerably.
Good grief.
So anyway, I would look at the label and I'd say, who is this McKinley Morganfield? Who is this Chester Burnett? Who is this Walter Jacobs? They're not members of the band.
Okay, now, hang on. So for the MP3 and YouTube generation,
Yes.
who don't
They can't do
understand,
that.
no, they can't do that,
No.
and maybe some of them don't want to do that. But if they do, there's nowhere for them to go with
Which
it.
I think is tragic.
But they would say, well, Adam, back in the 60s or the 70s, how did you do it? Because you didn't have Google.
No, but
So how did you
would-
follow up who's this guy, who's that guy on the sleeve notes?
Because I was an obsessive and I bought dictionaries. I would save up my pocket money and buy music dictionaries. I'd buy the NME Book of Rock. I had, books about jazz and blues from the age of 12, And both my parents are music lovers. I was very lucky. I grew up in a very cultured household. It was music and books all over the place.
Can I just ask you, with some of those books, now that we think about who wrote them and how they were written in retrospect,
Yeah.
do we think to some degree that history was being rewritten? Was it always accurate?
Oh, good Lord, no.
Good. I'm glad you said that. and in the context of the blues, can you explain more now
Well, I think
about
that
the blues?
To cut a long story, you could go on about this for hours, and boys do. But to cut a long story short, it's a question of, do you put your ego at the service of the music, or do you put the music at the service of your ego? And if you put the music at the service of your ego, you're not really playing the blues. If you have to put, you put yourself into it. You don't play it to puff yourself up. You play it to puff the music up, to present the music. And that is, to me, I've thought about this a lot, and that is the critical difference. And that's what makes the difference. The general public like what's the general public like, but I think if you talk to people who like blues, I would like to imagine that they would agree with me.
So Errol Linton, that's who we're listening to in the background now. And presumably Adam, our guest for today, Adam Blake, you were playing on this track with
I played
Jay Wise or something?
It's called Jay Wise. It's after a club in Jamaica. Errol wrote that after a visit to Jamaica. I played bass and guitar and actually piano, funnily enough.
Oh, so there's more. You're not just a one-track guitar man. You play other things too.
I'm not a piano player, but I'm playing it like a percussion instrument. Also I wanted to say that track features the late, great Abram Wilson, who tragically died, and he was such a wonderful musician, and we did a fair amount of work with him, and I just wanted to remember him because he was very, very special. You know?
Yes, well, rest in peace,
Absolutely.
Abram. I mean, actually, he passed away around the time of the Grenfell. Well, we had Grenfell Tower as well. Or
No, he died before that.
Was
He
that
died
before?
about 3 years ago.
Was it 3 years ago?
About that, yeah.
Because I thought it was this
No,
year.
no.
Okay.
He died about 3 years ago. He had a proper New Orleans funeral in central London. It was an amazing event. And Winter Marsalis led the parade. I mean, and I danced the second line with a yellow umbrella in my hand. It was a tragedy that he died so young, but it was a beautiful send-off.
Maybe people must have been remembering him again this year. Then
Yes, I
that's
dare
where
say.
I'm getting confused. But just very quickly, I mean, Grenfell Tower fire, it made a huge impact on you, didn't it?
It was terrible.
As it did on many of us. But I think especially for you as a West Londoner, as a Portobello.
Well, the helicopters
kind of
woke me up, and you could still smell it like 48 hours later. It was horrendous. It was a dreadful, dreadful thing. And as a symbol of what's going on, you couldn't really, I mean, it's just so awful. I don't want to say too much about it because I just sound trite, but
Sometimes people do need to say stuff about it, but I know you do that on Facebook, and that's where people can find you if they want to know more about your music, Adam. But also, just very quickly, your CD, Portobello Blues.
Yes.
Unsurprisingly, that's the title of it.
The funny thing about the CD is I wanted to make an album of myself busking that actually was recorded live on the corner of Elgin and Portobello. So it is what it says it is on the tin. It really is recorded there and then. And if anybody would like to buy one, they can contact me through Facebook.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Adam Blake on Facebook and here on A World in London, it's been an absolute privilege to have
Thank
you on
you.
the programme. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. What are you going to take us out with
I'll
today?
do you a little boogie in F.
Well, before you do your little boogie in F, I'd just like to say goodbye to people. So I'm going to turn you down with your boogie in F for the moment. A big thanks to Alban Lowe, artist, to Norman Drucker, Sophie Darling and Sophia Gattani Morris on production, Patrick Bernard, sound engineer, and Resonance FM. Oh, and you for listening. And of course, Adam Blake, taking you out of this world in London. Ciao from me, DJ Ritu.
We done?
No,
Oh, we're not done?
no.
Well, I'll play a little bit more.
Carry on, Adam.
This program has been brought to you by Resonance 104.4 FM. If you liked what you heard and want to support our work, please make a donation at fundraiser.resonance.fm.